Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. For those of you who aren't superstitious, what is something that still freaks you out or gives you the creeps? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I don't really believe in ghosts and can usually think of reasonable explanations for supernatural events on the internet. But as soon as there's a sound in my own home and someone says, it's a ghost, all of a sudden all logic is out the window and this ghost is going to kill me. I won't take the dare of staying overnight in an abandoned or haunted house or room or whatever. First of all, it probably got the reputation because something is inherently wrong with the building. It was not up to code, or they left a gap that weather or animals could get in, or something else stupid. Secondly, in an abandoned place, there's probably mold, mildew, nasty bugs, and possibly homeless creeps, if not hungry rats or something calling the place home. Definitely unhealthy even on a sunny day, let alone all night. Not even plumbing would be working, so it would be a bad camping trip. Third, it's possible someone creepy would find out I was taking the I dare you to spend one night alone there dare, and could decide to, at best, try to scare the tar out of me, at worst, or torture and murder. Lastly, there's always the chance it really is haunted, and I might just have a heart attack out of fright. I don't know where the superstitions originated or how exactly they're supposed to work, because I live in the American South, and we have a bunch of superstitions from both Europe and Africa, but most people around here paint the roofs over their porches a specific shade of blue to ward off bad spirits. I also turn my shoes in 2 different directions after I take them off by the door. This supposedly confuses hags, haunts, and bad juju in general, so it won't find you. I do this fully recognizing how ridiculous it is. I grew up with stories of Bell Witch. As an adult, I don't believe any of it is real, but it was such a huge part of the culture I grew up with in Tennessee. We used to dare each other to call for her 3 times in front of a mirror in a dark room. None of my family or friends ever did it. My mom claimed she did it once and ended up with scratches down her face. To this day, I don't have the balls to do it. I'm getting an eerie feeling just typing this out. Generally not superstitious, but I grew up in Hawaii, and there is a legend about the night marchers, spirits of ancient warriors that are constantly marching to war. They say if you hang around an ancient Hawaiian rock wall after dark, you will upset the night marchers. One time my brother and I and some friends went camping and we found remnants of an old rock wall. We kind of about the legend, but the remnants passed under a tree, and we wanted to set up tent under the tree for extra protection from the rain. Anyway, we set up a tarp and tent underneath pretty close to the wall, hang out, eat food, etc., and finally go to sleep. We wake up to water dripping through the tent, and when we step out of the tent, it had been moved away from the wall and out from under the tree and tarp we'd set up. The tent had been moved at least 20 feet. At first, we were trying to be rational and thought it must be a joke that one of us stepped out and moved the tent when the rest of us were asleep. But we tried putting 3 of us in the tent and one guy couldn't move it, and it definitely would have woken up anyone in the tent. Both my parents are non-religious, very pragmatic people, and I'm their creepy black sheep type daughter. For some reason having to do with the story from his teen years that my dad refuses to talk about. Weird, because he's a very talkative person. I was never allowed to have a Ouija board, good man. I've watched scary movies since I was little with my parents. They never cared about any of my darker interests, but that's where the line was. To this day, I've never touched one, and I've been out of the house for half a decade. I'm a nurse and saw my fair share of dead people, 2 as of yesterday, but I have a keen sense of this person is going to die today. Sometimes I dreamt of my patient dying, and the day after I learned that he died at the exact time. I also had strange dreams, such as one time, the one that creeped me out the most, I dreamt that I forgot to buy a birthday present for the girlfriend of my boyfriend's BFF, a girl I met once that I don't follow on any social media. When I told him about my dream, he laughed it off just to come back 1 hour later with an uneasy look on his face, and he showed me her Facebook page. It was indeed her birthday. I had no way to know. It was awkward. These very specific dreams creep me out sometimes. And sometimes I feel in my guts that my patient will die, and I rarely get mistaken. Like, nearly never. I want to believe that it is from experience, but I am indeed a young nurse. I go to school at Ohio State University. I live in a dorm on campus. I swear to God it's haunted. Didn't even believe in ghosts until I got to this dorm, and my bathroom door will randomly open without anybody touching it, even though it is very firmly shut. It's even happened when it is locked once. My boyfriend has also seen it happen and apparently said ghost is impatient because I often pull up videos on my laptop, which doesn't have autoplay turned on, and randomly the videos will start playing. I honestly don't even know whether to be scared or not. Ouija boards. I messed around with one when I was in high school. My friend and I supposedly made contact with a 15-year-old boy, and we found ourselves wanting to play it all the time. It becomes so addicting I don't remember how or why we gave it up, but I'm glad we did. I'm not really superstitious, but I believe those things are dangerous. Evil exists, lol. I think I fall into this general category as well. Besides my normal baseball superstitions growing up playing it, I didn't really have too many superstitions or, logical-based thinking was a champion in my life. But still, Ouija boards, I've never messed with one. And, again, is it just a child's game? Some would say. Is there something more sinister to it? I don't know, but I've heard a lot of stories, and I've been reading 5 years worth of Ouija board stories, so where there's smoke, there might be fire. What do you think? Grew up in the hood of El Paso, Texas, where backyards were dark desert for a good chunk of my life. Stories of La Llorona and Huichivo still make not want to wander the desert at night. Huichivo is the one that gets me living out there. You could always see red lights that could be mistaken for eyes, and even Coca-Cola cans reflect off the moonlight would convince me there's a monster out there wanting to suck the lively blood from my body. In most regards, I consider myself very stably set in observable reality. I'm the sort of person who thinks along the lines of ideas like Newton's flaming laser sword logically. If it can't be tested or addressed, I'm probably done with it before it started. I'm not very outward about this unless asked directly. Stories and fiction are important, and we make sense of life using them, which includes anthology and astrology, superstition, and so on. No harm, no foul. With that being said, to give you an idea of the sort of person I am almost completely convinced that I have a relationship with random chance luck. I'll admit, if I looked closer at the overall pattern, I might not find this to be true. But random chance and luck consistently disfavor me until it matters. Playing a tabletop role-playing game, I roll frequently sequential ones on a 1d20 in a statistically unlikely frequency. If there's a 2% chance for a bad outcome or something, I will land very squarely in that. Poker hands will be hot garbage, and I have to play with that. So on, so forth. I'm not a big fan of gambling at this point. But when random life chance matters, it comes out in my favor. I'm not ready for an exam for the one time or haven't done the work on an assignment. Some bizarre domino effect ticks over in the universe consistently, and something will happen to give me time. If I'm having issues with a project at work, something will happen to make it work out of no action of my own. Something out of the ordinary will happen that makes me miss a car crash that could have been bad. Random impulses will put me in the right place at the right time for work or life in general when it matters. All in all, I'm convinced that while my random chance luck is cursed, it comes with a payoff. I have no logic to support this, just a series of one rolls, weird math outcomes, and a lot of favorable coincidences. Ouija board, yeah. About a decade ago, I had just moved back to my hometown. My friends had picked me up and we were all having drinks and whatnot at their apartment. When a couple of girls we knew came over, they brought a Ouija board with them, and I was pretty vocal about just not messing with that kind of shit. One of my buddies agreed with me, and we took off to help me get settled back in at home since I hadn't unpacked yet, then get some dinner. We returned back to the apartment about 10 o'clock, and our friends were sitting together in the living room with every light in the apartment turned on. They all had a look of terror on their faces, and they told the two of us that we were right, and the Ouija board freaked them all the fuck out. I asked what they did with it, and my friend said that he threw it in the complex's dumpster because he didn't want it around. The girls stayed over, and we all slept in the living room watching movies. Very early that morning, I needed to get home and figure out a job and etc., so it's around 6 a.m., and I'm leaving the apartment. The Ouija board was on the doormat, sitting there open-faced. I woke up my friend and told him it was a lame joke, and he began having a panic attack. He swore on his life he had thrown it away and begged me to get rid of it. I didn't touch it and left for home. Nothing aside from that ever happened or stemmed from it, but even a decade or so later, the same buddy won't even watch a horror movie because of that. That when someone dies, their soul lingers for a few days in our realm. You have to tell them it's okay to leave or ask what unfinished business they have and help them out, or else they won't leave to their final resting place. I'm not too religious, but grew up Catholic when my husband's grandpa died. 2 days later, 2 of the daughters of the deceased invited a lady who sees things when in prayer and is her friend. This was 4 years ago. The woman had cancer and already passed away. I was waiting for my ride, but they invited me to pray while I waited. We were at Caesar's house. The lady started a normal rosary, but started saying that let's call him Caesar was still there, so the daughter told him, "Dad is okay to go. Go find Mom. We're okay." The praying lady said he couldn't leave because he was worried about the family business and some specific stuff about some money. There's no way the lady knew the specifics. It did shock me. 31 male. I wouldn't say that I'm superstitious of anything, but I also don't F's with any of it. I figure if I'm not going to participate in superstitions, then I should try my hardest to not even acknowledge that they are there by completely staying away from any instance of them. Unfortunately, that means the good ones too, or any pennies I see heads up on the ground, I just walk away. Any, God forbid, if my son finds a 4-leaf clover and asked me if it's lucky. I'm not superstitious at all. I don't believe in ghosts, but 5 separate people working at the movie theater I used to work at have seen the manager who committed suicide walking around the lobby. 3 of these people never even met the guy because he died 4 years before any of them started working there, but their descriptions of him are spot on. My mom swears she heard Bigfoot outside of her window. She was a teenager on vacation in a cabin with her sisters. The 3 of them were being loud and having a good time late at night. All the adults were in a separate cabin pretty far away. They heard something big and heavy walk up to the cabin, breathing heavily and snarling. Then it let out this blood-curdling scream that shook them to their core. One of my aunts threw up, and they all started crying. They ran out of the house, through the door on the opposite side, down to the cabin with my grandparents. All 3 of them have told me the same story at separate times, and all of their stories align. They have not heard anything like that noise since, except a noise that was recorded on one of those hunting Bigfoot shows when they played on TV. My mom and one of my aunts were in the house. They both stopped dead in their tracks and came to see what was on TV. They said it was the closest sound to what they heard that night. Latin women, usually older, who deal with the brujeria, witchcraft. I don't believe in any of their spells or chants, but the fact that they'd go out of their way to obtain some of the items needed for a spell is bugged out. My ex-girlfriend's mom and grandmother were heavy into brujeria. Her mom was trying to make her boyfriend at the time propose to her by getting his worn underwear, a picture of him smiling, a piece of jewelry that he loved, and a bit of his blood. She then put it all in a small wooden bowl and placed the Grim Reaper on it. I still remember walking to the bathroom and suddenly seeing a black statue sitting on a bowl with about 10 candles surrounding it. My ex casually says, "Oh, that's not the worst. My grandma has done way worse." I'm 22 years old, and I still have to open the shower curtains when I'm in the bathroom just to check for serial killers. I don't look at mirrors at night, and when I use mirrors in daylight, I have to have my back against a wall so that nobody can stand behind me in the mirror. I don't look out windows when it's dark, and I can't stand with my back to open rooms. I always have to get full view of the room, or I think somebody is behind me. If someone calls your name, never answer to it. My mom always told me this as a child, and whenever I would ask why, she gets really angry and would say, "Just do it." I didn't pay much attention to that until weird things started happening. Once, me and my mom were in the same room. I don't remember what I and Mom were doing, but I heard my sister calling for me from outside, and I answered, "Yeah?" and went to check, but no one was there. So I came back, and Mom asked what happened, and I told her, and she just gave me a look, and that's when I realized my sister was sleeping right beside me the whole time. And at times, I'll hear knocks on the door with a man calling for me from outside, and whenever I'll go to check, no one would be there. So I'm a Christian, a devout Christian. Now, a lot of people would consider that a superstition, and fair enough. If God's not real, that's all it is, but I became a Christian fairly late in life, and it's had an interesting effect on how I view things like classic superstitions and fear. Due to my understanding of the Bible, I believe that a literal portion of God's Spirit dwells within my form. Now, that obviously means, and the Bible demonstrates this in its stories, that I am completely far and away immune to any interference by any sort of malevolent entity. No demon is going to mess with me when I have literally God following me around. Yet, despite having even more reason to not be afraid than someone who doesn't believe in any sort of supernatural entity, because not only am I certain they are real, so there's no question, I'm also certain that they cannot hurt me. Somehow I am still terrified to stand in my basement when it's dark. I was on a road trip with my 14-year-old daughter, and we booked a room with 2 double beds at an old large house that did B&B in Williamsport. We checked in around 10 p.m., walked into the room, and literally every inch of my skin started crawling. I'm not a superstitious person, and I've never felt this about anywhere before, but every part of me was screaming not to stay in there. Before I even said anything, my daughter told me she felt freaked out, and would I look under the beds. So I searched the room, under the beds and in the wardrobe, and there was nothing. So we got ready for bed. I kept on catching something in the corner of my eye in the mirror on the wardrobe, like something dark and blurry was moving behind me. Had it been any earlier in the evening, I would have booked somewhere else to stay and left. We slept in the same bed, with the light on, and that horrible uneasy feeling didn't leave me the entire time. I didn't sleep much, and I was very, very glad to get out of there as soon as it was light. We left at 6 a.m., and we were both so freaked out. I still check every now and then on TripAdvisor to see if anyone has left a review about that room. I'm not sure if this answers your question well, but I had never messed with a Ouija board or spirit box before this night. I used a Ouija board spirit box with my best friend and fiancé. All 3 of us are not religious, especially my fiancé. It was on Halloween a few years ago. Anyways, we used the Ouija board and a spirit box in hopes of talking with my best friend's mom, who passed away from cancer, in the house a few years prior. A guide online advised us to put a piece of food out as an offering. We chose an apple. The first thing the spirit box communicated to us was the word apple. We put all of our hands on the Ouija board, And yes, it did answer our questions. I really can't explain that. The weirdest part was the spirit box. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a device that you can use to ask spirits questions and receive audible answers. Let's just say we spoke to my friend's mom for 2 hours. It was an unbelievable experience. We asked her questions like what school she worked at, what car she drove, the middle names of my friend's family members, something my fiance and I didn't know, but we all heard the answers and they were correct. The phrase "proud of you" kept coming through. My friend had been sobering up and was accepted to a school they were excited for. So that made them really emotional. It was a surreal experience. It changed my fiance's view completely on the afterlife. He said there's no way for him to explain what we heard and now believes there is something I will always remember that night.